Okay, the purpose of the behavior intervention plan is whenever an IEP is written, it is necessary to consider the student's social, emotional, and behavioral needs. If there are significant problems in any of these areas, the IEP committee should examine ways to help the student. If a student has difficulties following school or class rules, the school psychologist should be advised to evaluate the child's behavioral needs. A meeting should then be scheduled with the parents for the purpose of writing a behavioral improvement plan or BIP. Once a BIP is signed by the parent, each person involved in the plan should receive a copy of it. This is a legal binding contract. The procedures outlined therein must be followed. Suspension and expulsion rights. In order to understand policies regarding suspension and expulsion, it is necessary to know the intent of policymakers. Students need to be in school. To require schools to work on improving a difficult student's behavior, the regulations now allow a school to suspend a student for a cumulative period of up to 10 days a year. Before a district can suspend a student for an 11th day, the IEP must meet to either write a BIP and behavioral goals or to review the existing BIP to see if it is still appropriate. In deciding whether a suspension is justified, the due process officer looks not only at the total number of suspension days, but also at how the school dealt with each infraction. Were the teachers actually working with the student on behavioral goals? If so, how and how often? It is critical that teachers keep documentations. When the students were referred to the principal for action, what action was taken? Were the nature and severity of the offense considered before suspension was invoked? Would another alternative have been more appropriate? When a student has repeated problems, sometimes they might benefit from a change in school. This is acceptable to suggest to the parents, but it is not acceptable to pressure them to do so. When expulsion is being considered for a student, a pre-expulsion IEP meeting is held. At this IEP meeting, 3 questions must be answered. Is the student appropriately placed? Is all the paperwork up to date? Is there a link between behavior and disability? The decision requires a functional behavior assessment, FBA, by a specifically trained team. An MET stands for a multidisciplinary evaluation team. This is used when diagnosing a child with learning disabilities. This team includes the following individuals: the school psychologist, the classroom teacher, the special education specialist, the nurse who works for the school district, the parents, and the school administrator. READ is a review of existing evaluation data. The process of looking at a student's existing data to determine if additional data is needed as part of the initial evaluation, if appropriate, or as part of a real evaluation. Specifically, the group conducting the READ must determine whether further assessments are required to determine whether the student has or continues to have a disability, whether the student's present levels of the academic achievement needs or related development needs to have changed, whether the student needs or continues to need special education and related services, or whether the student needs any additions or modifications to the special education and related services to meet the measurable annual goals set out in the Individualized Education Program, IEP, and to participate as appropriate in general education curriculum. An IEPT is the team that comes together to come up with the student's Individualized Education Program, or the IEP. It is created as a team effort and is reviewed periodically. An IEP states a student's annual education goals and how they will be measured. If needed, special education services and supports will be provided by the school through the IEP. Necessary modifications and accommodations will be provided. If a child is near the age of 16, transition goals will be thought of as the IEP writes the new IEP the year the student turns 16. Initial IEP and transition IEP. Once the student is diagnosed with a learning disability, an initial IEP will be created within 30 days of the diagnosis/evaluation meeting. This is the student's first IEP. A transition IEP occurs during the IEP annual review. right before the student turns 16 years old. A transition plan is put into place to outline transition goals and services for the student. This is based on the student's strengths and interests in preparation to help the student meet their post-high school goals. An annual review IP is a meeting where a student's IP teams meet once a year to review, edit or revise, and develop the student's IP for the next year. A reevaluation IP is not the same thing as an annual review. This usually occurs when a parent or teacher requests a reevaluation. There could be a number of reasons for this, including a new area of concern, the student's still struggling, or they're considering switching schools or going to college. Manifestation determination must occur within 10 school days of any decision to change the placement of a child with a disability because of a violation of code of student contact. So this means that it must determine if that student's behavior was because of their disability. If it is, you cannot take them out, and then you have to look at the FBA BIP that is currently in place. Due process hearing provides parents with the rights to resolve disputes with the school district. IP due process disputes are usually centered around disagreements over the following: a child's evaluation, a child's eligibility, a child's placement, methodology used to assess a child's related services like aides and specialists, changes to the child's IEP program, or suspension and expulsion of a child. An addendum to the IEP is when the information needs to be updated on the student's IEP because of the new information. And progress reporting is done when the teacher or whoever is currently looking at the student's IEP is marking and measuring the progress the student is making at their annual IEP goals. And that is it.